Welcome back, everybody. Today we're talking about foiling. Huge thing. There's a million videos on YouTube about foiling, and we're just gonna make it 1,000,001, I guess. Foiling, something that's really important about foiling, and a lot of teachers don't talk about this very much, is why foiling, right? When foiling. When are you supposed to do this? When is it gonna show up? So, when we're doing distributing, here's just a random sheet of paper. If we had a question like this, 6x minus 1, we could totally solve this question. We could use distributing. We could do 5 times 6 makes 30. We could do 5 times negative 1 makes negative 5. Don't forget that there's an x here. There should be an x on the 30.
Where's my pencil?
Just distributing. If you need another one, there's a pencil over here.
Yeah.
Girls in the back, let me get through this a little bit. Now, we know how to do distributing. We even know how to do distributing if we have maybe a variable in front of the parentheses, and we know how to do distributing even if we have 3 terms in the middle, right? We could solve this question, distribute. So what is the point of foiling? Foiling shows up whenever you have 2 things multiplied by 2 things, okay? So you need to I know a lot of us just kind of copy down what I write. I need you to just visualize this for 1 second, right? You got 1, 2, that's 2 separate pieces here, and we're going to multiply that by 1, 2. Now, I don't want to make this sound complicated. If you look at number 1, we've got 2 things multiplied by 2 things. So we're going to need to FOIL. And over here we got 2 things times 2 things. FOIL. Down here we got 2 things, FOIL. Okay? So whenever you see basically parentheses right next to more parentheses, where we've got 2 things and 2 things, we're going to need to FOIL. Now, FOIL, we haven't even started yet. FOIL is 4 letters, and FOIL, each of these letters stands for something. Now, I'm not going to tell you what those 4 things are yet, because I think I can make it even easier. What we're going to do, if we go back to this question, and we think about distributing the 5 like this, that's all we're going to do. We're going to go back here. We're going to look at this second set of parentheses, and we're going to take this x, and we're going to distribute that x just like normal. Notice I've ignored the negative 3 for now. And then we're going to take the negative 3, and we're going to distribute that. So how we're going to do this is we're going to do 2 distributing questions at the same time. Now, I told you guys before we got started, this mathematically is not very hard, but organizing is where you're going to kind of really get good at this. When I teach foiling, here's how we're going to do it. The first 2 things we get, I'm going to kind of put in boxes like this. So we're going to start with the orange. What is x? Distribute. What is x times x?
1.
So it's 1 times 1, which makes 1. Okay, whatever. What is x times x? X squared. When you multiply letters, you count them up, right? So we got 1x and 1x. That makes x squared. What is x times 4x? Oh, sorry, x times 4. Sorry, I'm getting a little distracted by talking here. Plus 4x. X times 4 is 4x. This is why I was saying that mathematically foiling is pretty easy. X times x is x squared. We don't need a calculator for that. X times 4 is 4x. We don't need a calculator for that. And now we're going to move on and distribute the negative 3. But when we do that, we're going to kind of write them like this. I know that seems a little crazy. I'm trying to tell you guys that organization is the key to success here. What is negative 3 times x? Negative 3 times x is just negative 3x. And let's finish this off. What is negative 3 distributed to our last piece? Negative 3 times positive 4, negative 12. 4 times 4 is 16, 3 times 4 is 12. So, that is basically FOILing. We did it. And just to kind of walk you through this slowly, x times x, we don't need a calculator for that. 4 times x is 4x, you don't need a calculator. Negative 3 times x, negative 3x, you don't need a calculator. This piece is maybe the only piece you would even need a calculator for. Negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. So FOILing, mathematically, it is not very hard. If I consider the quiz that we just took, questions like this is crazy. Look at all these letters. There's probably 10 times more numbers and letters on this quiz than there is on the new stuff. FOILing isn't all that bad with the numbers. Now, we're not done with this question. We have one tiny step left. The reason that we stacked up these middle two questions, these middle two terms, is because these middle two terms are like terms. We have 4x minus 3x, and we can combine those together. So when we combine those together, we're going to kind of write our answer down underneath these boxes. The x squared is just going to come down and be x squared. The 4x minus 3x, what's 4 minus 3? 1, of course. So we're going to have 1. And how many x's should be on there? Just 1. So remember, whenever you do adding or subtracting, you don't change the x's. You just leave them alone. And in this negative 12, we keep the negative 12.
How do you keep a negative 12 from?
So remember, when we did distributing, it was x times x is x squared, x times 4 is 4x, negative 3 times x is negative 3x, and this 12 is negative 3, positive 4.
So it's basically negative 12 just pushed to a side?
I don't quite know what you mean there. Okay.
Negative 12, which basically pushed to a side is where it is.
So we went pretty slow. We went through this question. Let's do another question, and we'll see that this is very doable, okay? So what we're going to think about is we're going to visualize this parentheses right here, and we're going to be distributing first an x and second a negative 7. Now, whenever you do distributing, make sure that your negatives are important. Don't forget those. And we're going to arrange them. We're going to organize. We're going to organize our stuff like this. And the reason we organize it like that is we're going to have a little combination. The thing about FOILing is it's really repetitive. And once you know how to do it once, you pretty much get the idea for every FOILing question. So, what is x times x? We literally just did that on the last question. X times x is x squared. And what is x times negative 5? Negative 5x. Right, you don't have to really do much math there. Okay, that's the orange part. Let's go do the blue part. What is negative 7?
Negative 7x.
Times x. I heard Brandon say negative 7x. Perfect. And then this last number is the only actual math.
But that'd be positive 35.
Positive 35. All right. We can pretty much finish this question just looking for combining like terms on those middle two. It's going to be x squared. It's going to be plus 35. And what goes in the middle here?
Negative 12.
Nice job. Negative 12. How many x's?
1x.
Just 1. Okay. We did 2 questions. It didn't take us very long. We don't have to do a lot of math. X times x is x squared. X times negative 5, negative 5x. That doesn't take a calculator. There's not a whole lot of reason to use a calculator. Before we do one more question, I just want to point out that when you do FOILing, you should really be looking for x squared, x, no x. It's like a little countdown. 2 x's, 1 x's, 0 x's. Okay? If you see an answer like this, maybe x squared plus 4x squared minus 2, this is wrong. For sure. There's no way this answer is correct because you cannot have a squared on the middle term. It will always be x squared, just an x, and then a negative 2. Okay, let's do these last 3 questions. The first one, we're going to do number 3, and we're going to go through it pretty quickly. You know, we're going to do distributing, we're going to get our boxes. Okay, it's actually pretty easy, pretty repetitive. What's x times x? X squared. It's literally the 3rd question in a row. We got the same thing. What's x times negative 15? Negative 15x. Again, there's nothing that we need a calculator for. We just put it like that. 15 times x? 15x. I mean, you literally just say the x second after the number, and then you're good. We've got 15x. And this last one is the one that you might need a calculator for. You know what? I think we should use a calculator. What's 15 times negative 15? Desmos.
Negative 225.
That is correct. 15 times negative 15, negative 225. You are correct. Negative 225. Okay, all we need to do now is combine our like terms, combine the middle stuff. The x squared is always going to stay. The minus 225 has no friends. It's going to stay like that. But what about the middle 2 terms? Minus 15 plus 15.
0.
Minus 15 plus 15 is 0, just like you said.
X, then? What do you keep that?
So what we got is plus 0x, but why would we write that, right? I mean, that's kind of silly. So we're not really going to write plus 0x. For your answer, you would just put x squared minus 225. That's the whole thing, right? Now, the middle terms, we kind of saw that coming, sort of, right? I mean, it literally says plus 15, minus 15. So plus 15 minus 15, that's going to make 0. All right, we're picking up the speed a little bit. Number 4 is going to be just a tiny bit harder because number 4 is going to add, instead of it just being x, 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 now we have something like 3x, or in this case 3a. So it is going to be just a little bit harder. We got a little bit more algebra to do. What is 3a times 5a? 3 times 5 is 15. A squared. That first term you get is gonna be a squared term. What is 3a times negative 2? So again, now we're having... You're right. I mean, I was just kind of trying to go a little bit quicker. You're right, Brandon. The boxes are definitely helpful. So 3 times negative 2 is negative 6a. Because 3 times 2 is 6. Okay, we got it. What about 11 times 5a?
55a.
55a, perfect. That's a positive 55a. And what about 11 times negative 2?
Negative 22.
Negative 22. All right, easy. We just add up these middle things. We'll be done in a second. We've got 15a squared. We've got minus 22. And what goes in the middle? Let's use Desmos. Negative 6, positive 55. Negative 6, positive 55.
49a.
Positive 49a. That's foiling. Honestly, number 4, almost every time is the hardest foiling question that you're going to see. Now, the reason I said almost is because there's a question like number 5, okay? Number 5 is the absolute killer of the distracted kids, the YouTube kids, the ear pod in their right ear because they're sitting next to the whiteboard and Mr. Collier can't see their right ear and they're trying to be sneaky about it. This question right here. This question right here. This question has y's in the second position. Instead of x's in the first position and that's it, now we also have y's in the second position. But don't get nervous, that only adds a little bit of difficulty. It makes it look kind of crazy, but it's not actually that much more difficult. I'm going to put my boxes down. Okay. First up, 4x times 6x. 24x squared. We're always going to be getting that x squared in the first piece. Okay? Then we're going to do 4x times 7y. We literally just took a quiz on this. Let's start with our numbers first. What's 4 times 7?
28.
28. How many x's do we have? 1. And how many y's do we have? 1.
Why?
Because look, we got,
X.
because look, we're multiplying 4x and 7y. So we got 28, 1x, 1y. Now let's do the next one. We have negative 1y times 6x. That's going to make negative 6, 1x, 1y. And we're going to finish up with negative 1 times 7, negative 7. And how many y's are on that 7? 1, 2. He's right. We have 2 y's. Okay, I got one more little, trick for you. I'm going to tell you a shortcut in just a second. What we're going to do is add these middle ones together. We're going to bring down the 24x squared. We're going to bring down the minus 7y squared. And what is 28 minus 6? 22. Now, whenever we do adding, do we change the letters or not?
No.
Leave the letters alone. All right, we're going to finish the notes. Here's my advice for you. Do you see how the x's have 2 x's, 1x, 0x? You guys see the countdown, right? Surely we can mute that, please. 2 x's, 1x, 0x. It's a countdown. The y's are the same thing in reverse. We have 2 y's, 1 y, 0 y's. Okay? So it's like a double countdown. 2, 1, 0, 2, 1, 0. Okay, this is just the first day. It's just the first 5 questions. You definitely want a little bit more practice. We'll work on this tomorrow.